Today I'm interviewing Adam Dymitruk, who is based in Canada. He's an IT consultant. And Adam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Sure. So, yeah, I've been a consultant for a long time. I started my own consultancy back in 2015 to focus on a specific way of developing software, but I've always been programming and in the IT space. Uh, I'm not, if you look at it from the surface level, I've always just been doing computers, which is kind of boring. But then if you look deeper into it, we've done some exciting things to help the industry be better and more efficient with how they build software and automate systems. So at heart, I'm still always a programmer, but I now live vicariously through the efforts of many others.
What specifically do you do for your clients?
We always try to be the ones that build things in a better, more maintainable way, a more efficient way, a more sustainable way than what is out there that you get by default. There's a lot of issues with trying to automate systems and software quality, and we hear of a lot of projects gone sideways and go over budget, not get finished, or have low quality. So what we do basically is shield our clients from suffering any of those issues with their software projects. And that comes from years of experience and having uh, a senior team that has the relevant experience to execute that way. And our goal is for our clients to absorb that knowledge through working with us so that they can have their employees execute in the same manner, be efficient, and deliver high quality. So, most of the time for our clients, we would like to work with their teams to bring them up to another level. But at the same time, we also help companies that have no IT per se or developers per se. They might have some IT, but they might not have a development team. So we will build systems in a very modular and maintainable way so that they have something that they don't need to worry about, and we'll take care of it for them altogether. We also do education for our clients. So clients that don't necessarily want to outsource any of the projects will basically educate for better practices in terms of how we work so that they can try that themselves. So it's a sort of a wide range from involvement just at the education level, but also to a very deep level where we're the entire software development team and IT team for an organization. And we also work with large and small companies. So companies that are startups all the way up to Fortune 500 and larger for Fortune 50 companies that need to adopt some of the streamlined ways at scale. So those are, the things that we do for our clients.
When you work with clients and you mentioned there's sometimes knowledge transfer. Is that something that you see in the industry a lot, or are most companies kind of just coming in, doing the work, and then leaving?
So as consultants and outsourcing companies, we have a lot of things that we need to deal with for some of the less scrupulous companies out there. We certainly hear a lot of disaster stories of people outsourcing something overseas and never getting a proper product and getting strung along and paying and never actually getting anything. So also a lot of non-overseas consultancies, like ones in your town, might front load experts at the beginning of a project, and when people come back in a month or two down the road, the people that were really good, that knew what they were talking about, they're executing really well, they've been replaced by junior people, yet the rate stayed more or less the same. And so they're all of a sudden, the projects that were looking really good are now not continuing to do so because they've moved on to another client where those senior people are doing the same thing. And so that's another thing that some companies have done, and it does leave a bad image on consultants that are trying to actually do the right thing and teach their clients and have that continual support from the staff that they wanted and the projects that are finishing on time and on a budget and have that high quality. So we want to be the example for how to work that way. And so, yeah, that's that's kind of the landscape out there. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but that's how I see the landscape of consulting and outsourcing out there.
That has been my experience too. I've come into some projects with some of my clients where they've had that experience, which is not nice. Like you said, it gives a bad reputation to people like us who are trying to do our best for our clients. I wanted to backtrack a little bit and just kind of ask you, like, how did you start your career in IT? Did you go to college for it? Did you learn on your own? Did that?
Yeah, I sort of fell into it, really. I didn't realize that what I was good at was in high demand. So I actually started consulting still when I was in high school. I wasn't even going to college yet. And just it's something that I love doing. So I've been programming from a very young age. And obviously taking the computer science classes at school was a cakewalk and fun because I could spend that time to work on projects that I wanted to during school and take care of the assignments in the first 5 minutes and do what I want. So it was a lot of fun. I ended up in a special program in the final year. That was where they selected 2 students that were the top in the school to go and set up labs and actually get hands-on work as coursework. And I got called into the principal's office one day. I remember being scared about what happened and what I do. And it was actually a friend of the principal's that was a local government employee, a minister of some sort in the energy sector. And he was digitizing and setting up a proper office with computer equipment to do all sorts of things. And so that was my first contract, basically. I kind of got thrown in as a freelancer in high school, and then I continued to do that off and on as I went through college. Obviously, always around computers. I had some. Even when I was 16, I was already working in like a retail video game and computer store where you needed to have technical knowledge to be able to help people set things up and whatnot. So I was already doing that for paying for my school and paying, making some money at a younger age. So I've definitely been immersing myself because of the, love of tinkering with computers and obviously, like anyone else, loving video games and wanting to program my own video game. And I remember in grade 7 having a very tough lesson that interpreted languages are not fast enough to make video games. So that forced my hand to go and learn assembler at a young age. And I basically programmed assembler from the age of 12 or 13 on the 6502 back in the day. So I kind of was quite intimate with how computers worked underneath. I always had that in the back of my head as to kind of a grounding that whatever I do at a higher level for recommending something or programming something with a higher level language, I always knew the impact underneath. And I think that was a good thing. I think there was a recent tweet that said, I think it was Bill Gates that said what you do from the age of 13 to 18 and what you love doing as a fun hobby or what excites you in terms of any type of work or something that can be work is something that you'll excel at. So definitely that was true for me because that's where I ended up, is sitting in front of computers all day, just like, when I was a kid. So yeah, that's how I started. That was my first gig, and then, went on to enterprise level systems in the latter half of the 90s and kind of learned some lessons about how not to do things. I saw inefficiencies that I didn't like, and that just continued to feed my passion for consulting and trying to right the ship at different places and introduce that technical vision and guidance and leadership to make sure people are aligned, which led to a lot of other good things.
You mentioned before that I believe it was 2015 when you started the company Adaptech. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's when the consulting thing became larger than just me, where I realized I needed to, in order to be successful, I needed to scale my efforts, and for that to be effective, I couldn't really do that at a clients using their consultants and their employees, which is what I was trying to do: build good teams for companies, and maybe they would reward that. But there's always friction in that. Of course, there's other initiatives in a company, people with their own goals, and so that doesn't always align. Most of the time it doesn't align. So I needed to create a company where I was the one creating the environment that had the vision of how I saw a proper project going forward. And it's like Field of Dreams: if you build it, they will come. And so, I started to basically say that all the things that I've been trying to do with all these previous clients, I've now created a company where we are doing that. There's no one to convince, and if there's clients that are interested in it, they will come to us and ask for that. And so I was quite surprised that, yeah, a lot of people were very happy to come and work that way, because they too, I realized how many other people, deep inside wanted to work like that, and wanted to be rewarded honestly for their efforts, and to be heard, and to have the autonomy and all these different things. I packaged that up and said, okay, you can do all that. Here's the contract for how you work. And then, yeah, the other side came through as well, and organizations started to see that this is an efficient way of working. And so that whole environment became successful, and it's nice to know that other people had the same ideas to want to work the same way. And then you perfect that, make it as efficient as possible, and then you shield your clients from their own overhead and their own politics, etc. And so it's a good thing. It's, a lot of people see consulting as or outsourcing companies as, things that might introduce bad things, etc. But we want to be on the other side, where companies can say, we've had, missed deadlines, or quality wasn't high enough, or we didn't know how to solve some of these problems. If we come in and we do that by example, and remove time and money from their expenses and their roadmaps, then they're happy. And so that's what we've been doing. And it took some brave decisions. For example, to work only on fixed costs for most of our clients. We have some clients that we don't do fixed cost, because it's not the work is quite more generalized. But for most of our clients, we only build on fixed cost on a granular level, and guarantee the work to be bug free. So we fix bugs for free, and that's one of the sort of pivotal moments that I realized that this is not what most companies are comfortable in doing. And I asked myself why. It's because they can't do that if their software isn't to a high enough standard. It is full of bugs, and it's going to, to make a proposition like that, it's going to bankrupt them. And so I said, well, if that's, if what I'm saying is true, then let me put my money where my mouth is, and actually see if I can run the business like this. And it's turned out to be the best decision ever. It actually allows a crazy amount of scale to building teams and executing on projects with so much risk removed from, if there's going to be project overruns in either time or money, and never at the expense of quality. So that's been a really good way of working. But it took a lot of experience to kind of, have that confidence, and have the patterns that were going to enable you to do that.
At the beginning, when you went from, just being a freelancer out there on your own, and then trying to build a company, what were the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to make that transition?
Well, obviously, when you're on your own, you don't have a steady paycheck anymore. I mean, you may have a client, but you know that engagement may only be for 3 months, or it might be 6 months, or it might be a small project for a month. So especially when you're starting out by yourself, you're wearing a lot of hats. So you're going to have to be the salesperson, you're going to have to be the support person, you're going to have to be the IT person, you're going to have to be the programmer, you're going to have to be all of these things: project manager, right? Product owner, scrum master, whatever it is. Like, you're going to have to wear a ton of hats And then not only that, but then you're going to have multiple companies, multiple clients to deal with at the same time. So how are you going to spread yourself so thin to do all those things and do a better job than they're doing internally? So you have to have some secret sauce. You have to have plenty of prior work that you've built up to do that. So the challenge was to kind of have faith in myself that I did build up all of that through all the efforts in the previous years, that the experience was better than the average of all the clients that are coming to me. And so that was the bet. And so it's a challenging thing. And it ended up with, inventing new ways of working, a lot of thinking outside the box. The challenges couldn't be solved by just doing what everyone else was doing, just faster and better. You needed to do things differently. And so, that may not be an option for everyone. And so you might have to look at, a different way to solve your challenges, maybe by having hyper focus on something very new, like a new technology. Right now, AI is really in fashion. So, being really good at everything AI related and being the go-to person for a company to know what's going on, that's actually a good thing. Or you can do the trailing tail. You still might do some COBOL stuff, and like clients, large banks out there have a hard time, to find someone that does COBOL, but they're willing to give you a lot of money for it because you're replacing the need to rewrite that system, which could be multiple millions of dollars. Whereas, they can just pay you $100,000 to add those features to this old, COBOL data, code base. And so, that might really start to diminish as AI takes over some of this. But for recent years, being at the very tail end or the very front end of technology adoption curves was something where a consultant could make good money, honestly.
You mentioned that you've done some things to increase your efficiency and the efficiency in the projects that you deliver to your clients. What are some of those things that you have done?
Yeah, it's one of those hard things that you need to think outside the box, but more importantly, you have to enlighten your clients to also think outside the box with you at that point. So some of these leaps of faith are doing design, for example, which is not in favor in a traditional sense in agile circles, because big design up front is an evil thing. So to even introduce a lot more planning and design at the front is something that you have to show case studies and explain how that's going to eliminate a lot of rework and waste in their projects. So that invention was, I kind of invented that out of that need to be different and to be able to execute for less money, less time, with higher quality and all the other things. And so the trick was to find that a lot of the practices that are found in software shops or companies that have software development in them, that a lot of the practices and processes are actually don't give you a lot of value. And some of them are actually counterproductive. They just introduce more moving parts. And then in the end, you do end up having more friction or delays in communication. You end up creating silos and specialists and tools, etc. So I came up with a way to do design and run software projects out of using one process instead of many, and it ended up being called event modeling, but I never set out to make that. It fell out of that push to do more for less, faster, with higher quality. And so that involved dropping things. There's just no way you can run with a very heavy tool belt. If you have a chainsaw on one side and a sledgehammer on the other and you're trying to run the race, you're going to be slow. Sure, you can do a lot of things, but you're carrying a lot. And so really it's finding the small little Swiss Army knife that you can hold in one hand that's going to do everything for you. And so event modeling became a way to design a system, a way to collaborate on requirements, to have the artifacts of that be something that's very much ready to go and start being implemented, but not be heavy like the way UML was pushed to an extreme in 2002 and those in those timelines where you're trying to replace what programmers do by drawing squares and rectangles and in Visio or something. That was too much. You don't need the nitty gritty of how each line of code works. What you needed, the kind of turning point, the light bulb in my head was that the only thing that's important is state, and it's revisiting old truths that were uncovered a long time ago by people like Fred Brooks that said state is the most important thing. I really don't care about those algorithms. I can see the state of the system. I know what the system does. And so taking this to the next level, being able to support purpose-built models for each workflow was a big insight as well. So moving away from the kind of single model in your database, that single data model with a bunch of forms in your web application and different queries to shape that data for each screen was really turned out to be quite inefficient, although it looked really efficient because you only have to manage one model. But that's actually really hard to do because you're trying to make that model the best for quite different pieces of functionality. So being able to be brave enough to say that I'm going to have multiple models that I'm going to implement for you, with the trade-off that that's actually going to be less expensive for managing the software going forward, because what you're going to have is a way to limit the coupling, right? Even though there's more coupling, it's a better kind of coupling, which is interesting. So there's a lot of this realization that people have to kind of come to with you along the way to realize that these things are really good trade-offs, and then to have to build up some data around that in terms of the metrics and case studies and everything else to show that this is what's going on. Event modeling was one of those things that I didn't know I needed, and it ended up being the way we ran software projects was kind of the thing that it fell out of. And the second thing was obviously to have immutable data and to have treat information systems like there were accounting systems. And so that means not just updates to table rows, but you always kept every piece of information. So you had a breadcrumb trail of how the system got to a certain way. And so some of those guarantees end up being quite valuable because finding a bug, fixing it, and deploying it doesn't take us more than 4 hours, no matter what the bug is. And as opposed to the situations I was running into as a freelancer, there was bugs that just were never solved. There was bugs that took weeks, and people scratching their heads and digging through logs that were semi-reliable or hard to cajole together to make sense of them. Yeah, it was really tough. So, addressing those top 100 problems with software development, making sure you're eliminating those things like data migrations, the fact that you have one version of a schema going to another as you added more features. Those are also things that can just really throw a wrench into companies and software projects moving from version 1 to version 2 in terms of how the database schema changes. Those were nightmare projects, and we simply don't have that problem. We adopt a way of addressing that. If you're doing immutable data stores, that by its nature forces you to do the mapping of a new piece of data to how it's represented, in the old code, how you migrate the old data to be represented in a new schema. That has to be done right away. So that a lot of responsible things were kind of pushed that we in the software industry generally don't do. We usually push schema migrations until it's time to release or something like that. And even if we try to do it in real time, we get friction because we're trying to juggle that unified model that I was talking about. So all these things play together, but in essence, you got some, different ways, a different local maxima that's higher. But and the funny thing is, there's no way that continuous improvement from the way you ordinarily develop software, there's no way that continuous improvement of those methodologies would ever lead us to what we're doing right now. It required a leap onto another mountain. to climb, and you have to realize there's a valley there. There's no way to continuously try and find the path up and find the next, and that will find you another mountain. You're going to just find the top of your own mountain you're on.
It's always great to hear how, in the pursuit of creating value and serving, your clients in the best way possible, you had to take some bold steps, as you said, and a break from this standards of industry that really were not working. So, what are some of the challenges that you're facing now? We're talking about 8 years later. Um, I, you mentioned that some clients you have to kind of walk them through and help them see beyond what they're used to. But just as a company, what are the challenges that you face now?
Well, what was good 8 years ago is no longer, what was the best 8 years ago may not be the best right now. So the industry's always moving forward. There's always innovation, and so the new challenges are all to do with automation through AI, and being able to realize that just like we have content creators and others that are getting totally out of work because the marketing materials written by AI in a couple of minutes instead of a week by someone being creative, which is frightening to some. But it's really understanding how we continue to commoditize work. It happened with factories and having things built by hand. All of a sudden, you've had machines helping you. All this automation is as old as humanity. So our challenges are of the same nature, no different than that. So there's an event modeling.ai that's being put out right now, where we literally are saying, those things that we've been teaching that you do, you are not going to be doing that. A computer's going to be doing that. So how does that change how your system's going to get automated? And so it's an exciting challenge. I don't think I'd be doing this if things weren't challenging. And if things weren't challenging, there'd be a ton of other people doing it. And it would be a commodity. It would be like applying for fast food jobs. I don't want that. You need to, be out there designing the next best fryer, not being the fry cook, right? So this is exciting. And it opened up a new Discord for that. We used to have a Slack community channel. Now moved that over to Discord under the event modeling.ai. So there's an opportunity with all these challenges that it allows you to pivot significantly. It allows you to introduce new insights that you gained. For example, a lot of the modeling sessions that we've had, you can use that as training data privately, semi-privately, depending on the client and their nature of their work, to train these models so that when you go and say, yeah, I love the way you guys do software, can I do this with AI? Like, yeah, you can. Just go here and start the conversation with this chat bot, and it'll ask you about what screens you want to see. It'll start to basically ask you what do you want to see in your event model without having to even explain to you event modeling. And then that at the other side, you can just export that event model and hand it over to your developers, and they'll go and implement that. Or better yet, do the next step with AI as well. At least get 80% of it automatically kind of created for you. Maybe you exclude any generation of infrastructure code because you have your own special sauce for that, because you have scaling requirements that are different, and just leave it at the command handlers and read models. Or maybe you want the whole thing because you don't have anything yet, and that's a good starting spot because you're actually working with software that's executable, deployable. You can see it and test it. So those are exciting challenges to build that. And now it allows me to, say, how do I start to become very knowledgeable in AI? Thank goodness I loved linear algebra back in college, because, it's really these vector databases and all those things are something that I welcome with open arms. It's like, this is something that I went to school for, that I really enjoyed. And I can continue to build on that knowledge. But also from the type of work that's going to be done, the people that we're going to be employing and subcontracting, their skill set is now entirely different now. I mean, we're not really picky about the stack. We never were really. We were always a polyglot type of development where we weren't too opinionated as to what language is better than another, etc. But now with AI, we can really push that to the limit, and we can move that work a little bit higher conceptually, where people are talking truly about state moving forward and the systems are automating and allow these tools to do that. So yeah, the next challenges are, as real as for anyone. I mean, it's this whole automation is changing the way the world works. Yeah, just the idea though that information is so important for training these systems, and knowing that in the 8 years of the company we've had no data loss, right? We've been doing event sourcing the whole time. So the data that we gathered in these companies, the data that our clients have because they implement it with us, is putting them way ahead of all their competitors. They have incredibly good training data that others don't, right? They might have had some superficial data analytics people with, some star schema stuff and some data time windows for snapshots, but that's nothing compared to actually having business focused events as a full ledger of what happened for your entire company's history. How else can you train your AI, your internal AI, right? So I think a lot of our clients are going to be very happy that they went with us and they have this amazing ledger of how their business evolved through the eyes of their own customers. So it's super awesome. I'm very happy about this challenge, and we want to be the best in class for leveraging AI for automating systems. And I think having that leap of faith and trusting that doing the right thing rather than grabbing the most money was a good decision.
That's another argument for event modeling and event sourcing. It's almost like you had a crystal ball.
It took years and decades of looking at a ton of different problems, different languages, and just the evolution of the industry, seeing Moore's law develop in front of your eyes over that. So, it's hindsight is 2020. It might look like a crystal ball, but it was, a lot of. It wasn't an uneducated guess. Oh, I think this looks cool. I'm going to try it. I actually needed to, deep down in my heart, know that was the right answer, and this was going to leave me and my clients in a better place than doing a compromise because I wanted the easy money.
What would you say to somebody who is just at the beginning of their journey? They're just getting started. What are some tips or words of wisdom that you could give them?
If someone was starting, I would say pay attention to design and data. Read some of the original works by guys like Fred Brooks, Mel Conway, Grady Booch. There was a hype cycle of Agile. It was a reaction. It was be mindful of these different trends and adoptions. Definitely you have a pendulum that swings from extremes. For someone that's new, don't get caught up in the hype. Always learn from the fundamentals. It doesn't mean you have to understand a CPU like I had to. There's a level of abstraction that someone new today doesn't have to go to. But at the same time, you always want to have that layer just underneath. I think Linus Torvalds is someone that is quoted as saying this: in order to do something well, you need to understand the supporting level to a reasonable amount. And so just leveraging AI is going to be good for someone that's new. But the person that's going to be able to leverage better is going to be the one that understands vector databases, for example, and has some linear algebra under their belt. I think those people are going to have a better time and an easier time leveraging those things. And maybe I'm wrong. This is my prediction again. I don't know if I'm right. We'll find out in another 8 years.
Anything else you would like to say before we go?
Yeah. So if you are interested in seeing how we work, why our approach scales from small companies to large companies, is this a way of thinking that's going to help you? Go to eventmodeling.org and read about it. If you're thinking about the fact that systems are hard to automate, do one simple thing and just store what just happened and worry about how that's going to look later. That's kind of like a cheat sheet for event sourcing that's going to get you there eventually. So that's what I'd like to say to the people that are interested in this, to test out these concepts by doing such things.
For people who might be interested in, having you speak or maybe using your company's services, what's the way that they can contact you?
The easiest way to find out about us and what we do is there's a form you can fill out at adaptechgroup.com. So it's ADAPTECH, adaptechgroup.com. So if you're familiar with SCSI interfaces back in the day, it's a different spelling. Adaptech was with, I think, just a C. But that's I don't know, it's a coincidence that I had that company's name in my head when I came up with my own. But definitely our site. I mean, you can just Google my name, Adam Dymitruk, and our company should pop up. My Twitter handle should pop up, so you can DM me on Twitter. If you want to see where I kind of live in the Discord server, that would be eventmodeling.ai is the Discord server. So there's an invite code that we have. You can find on eventmodeling.org if you want to find out about event modeling. That's eventmodeling.org. That has the original article that kind of went up on Hacker News, went viral for a bit there in 2018 now, I believe, October of 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019. It's not that old. So about 4 years ago, it went viral, and a lot of people started to think about things differently because of that article. So the original one that I wrote is on there. It's the oldest post on eventmodeling.org. So definitely read about that. And if anyone wants me to present or help out, I'll be speaking in Australia in the fall here, early December, in Melbourne, Brisbane, and Perth. Sydney. I did Perth last year, so that's the next time that I'm doing that. But we also have workshops that we do that are in person and others. So lots of ways to find me. Very, very easy to find. I'm quite active online, and my name is not very common. So if you just type it incorrectly, you will find me. It got changed in World War II by my great aunt or something like that. And I think Linus Torvalds had the same thing happen to him. His proper spelling is without the last S, but someone in his family tree also did that. So there's only 280 Torvalds in the world too. So yeah, it's something in common with one of the best software engineers that we have in our history.
I'll put those links also in the description to the video. Thank you again for tell us more about you and what you work on and how your company is helping clients and bring better software development to the masses. So thank you again for your time.
It's my pleasure. Part of what we do is give back to the community. So teaching for free is what we do in meetups as well and all that. But to scale that, obviously you have to have a consultancy. So I'm happy to do it either way. So thank you for having me. Always good to see you. And I remember meeting with you a long time ago to go through and compare notes and teach and do all those things. So hopefully, whatever I did is helping you in some way as well, Roberto.